So yeah, so thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I just wanted to go back because obviously you're quite a new artist to us in the UK. Just growing up, what were your kind of early musical memories?
Oh, honestly, all of my memories from childhood are musical. I
Right.
got put into voice lessons when I was two. Um, I would walk around the house singing my sentences instead of speaking them. The first gift I ever asked for Christmas was a saxophone, and my
Right.
parents really tried to get me a saxophone, but I was like two, three, so Um, yeah, it ended up being a plastic little thing that I couldn't use, and I was crushed. But it's kind of hard to find a functioning saxophone for a toddler. Um, but yeah, I was completely raised surrounded by music, so
Mm.
it's kind of in my blood, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of artists, then, who was the one person that said, right, I want to do that, that made you think I want to do this as a career, as a life?
I don't know if I had one person. I felt like anytime that I saw music, anytime that I saw anyone on stage or heard any song on the radio or heard any recorded song at all, I just was like, that's what I want to do.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it's possible that I did have that moment, but I was just too young to remember it because my parents started taking me to concerts when I was very, very small. Like my first
Right.
concert, I think, was Tom Petty.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, but I was again like two or three, so maybe it's him. But
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. It's just always been what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, going from that to first single came out 2019. I mean, going from going to concerts and seeing people on stage and buying albums and playing music. What was it like seeing your own name on the front of a record?
It was surreal for sure. I think I cried the first time that I heard the song completely finished and
Yeah.
done because I was just so happy that I was finally able to make music. It, it's it's one of the best feelings in the world to write and record and then release music to the rest of the world. I'm very fortunate that I get to be a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, to go from that, then, I mean, you've had over 6 million streams. Just looking at your figures alone, I mean, just having 6 million streams from that, I mean, which is incredible. I mean, it's a fantastic achievement for any artist these days. But do you remember where you were or what you thought when you hit your first million?
I don't. I was probably hanging out with my best friend at home. Um, those big numbers, they just kind of pass you by. You don't really think about it, or at least I don't really think about it, because
Right.
at the end of the day, like I don't really care how many people hear my music as much as I care about the impact that it has.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I do a good job of making what I'm trying to say come across so that people can relate to it and feel it.
Yeah.
So I think I remember releasing the song very well. I remember like the first time that someone asked me for an autograph, those things stick out in my head. But numbers, it's easy to get wrapped up in them, but I try
Yeah.
not to pay attention to them because it's just there's so many more things to appreciate about music, you know.
No, absolutely. I mean, just going back to what you said then about somebody coming asking for your autograph relating to your lyrics, for somebody that's been playing music or been interested in music for their entire life, what does that feel like when somebody relates to what you've written?
It's it's indescribable, but it's just pure joy of, knowing that I've done a good job of portraying what I wanted to feel, or at the very least, I'd made something that someone else can relate to in their own personal way. And to see people like get excited to talk about, music with me, whether it's my own or something else that it reminds them of, or anything of that nature. It's just really validating and really like,
Yeah,
I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm doing my job right.
definitely. I mean, on that note, is there any moments that have really stuck out where somebody's talked to you about a song? I mean, I spoke to an artist the other week who talked about a song he'd written, and somebody said, he'd gone through a hard time with his dad and things like that, and the music had got through it. Is there anything like that for you where somebody's and you've just been kind of taken aback?
I I there was a girl from I don't remember where she was from, but she sent me a message to tell me that she had performed one of my songs at her school talent show.
Wow.
And she had been one of the finalists at the show. And I just was amazed at the concept that, some random stranger who I've never met in real life would go and sing my song at her talent show.
Yeah.
Um, and that she did a good enough job that people liked it. I mean, I'm not surprised that she is talented, just surprised that my
Yeah.
song was the song that she chose. That, and I had a friend who got married who lives in California, and unfortunately it was a COVID wedding, so I wasn't able to go. Um, and she also played one of my songs at as like
Wow.
in her playlist for her wedding, which I was just so moved by. Because her mother also really enjoyed my music, and so she remembered, like she told me about like sharing that memory with her mother before she passed. So there's a lot that like hit me very deeply. I try to remember every story that people tell me as I have them, because these are like really personal, important moments for me and the person I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to just let those conversations slip past because you have a million other things to do. But I like to really internalize them as best I can. And honestly, if I wanted to, I could just talk about that for the rest of the interview. All the people that I've met who just have affected me in some way that like really stuck with me. But I digress.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, it's absolutely fine. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, as a songwriter, it must be incredible for somebody somebody that you know to connect with your music, but somebody that you've never met or somebody to be on the other side of the world to connect. How do you how do you deal with that when you see that and somebody from the other side of the world gets in touch?
Honestly, I've had a lot of friends, and I've known a lot of people who are from other countries and who are from across the sea. I mean, I've traveled to Europe um, and England multiple times um, because, I was just trying to see friends. So when I see someone from some part of the world that I've never been to try to reach out to me, I think it's really cool. But I think about it as like a sort of like, this just makes sense. I want to be a musician. Music unites the whole world. So of course, if enough people listen to my music, someone from somewhere far, far away is going to hear it and go, "Hey, yeah, I like this." Um, which it's still baffling to think about anyone listening to my music, whether they're my next door neighbor or they're from Singapore or, anywhere else in the world. I'm rambling, but
No, no,
it's
no. I mean, it kind of leads into my next question, and it's ties in kind of with the comment you just said about music and people being all over the world and relating to your music. Language barriers. I mean, the album title is quite an open-ended. It's got. I mean, as far as I can read into it, it's got multiple meanings. I mean, could you tell us what the meaning to you is behind it?
yeah. So that is actually a really clean segue. Yeah, so language barrier, I named it that because I felt like no matter what I said or did, I couldn't articulate what I was feeling at the time. Like I couldn't get through to the people around me.
Right.
Um, and I feel like that was a healthy mixture of being a young adult and just trying to figure out how to operate in the world, and some other struggles that I was going through, but and a mixture of being around the wrong people. But
Yeah.
um, over time, with like writing all of these songs, with sharing my music, um, it's really helped me to understand not only that there are people who will hear and there are people who will listen, there are people who will understand because they care about you and they want to keep working to understand you, or because they just naturally do. They just have to look for them. But also that I'm not the only person who feels these things, that
Yeah.
other people have gone through these things or gone through their own version of these things. And so even if I'm writing a song that feels to me like it's very niche and very particular to my situation, there will be 100,000 people who, if they hear it, they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I relate to that. That's something
Yeah.
that I've been through too." And that it's completely changed my perspective on life. It's completely changed my perspective on my job and on the world in its entirety. And so, ironically enough, me making a whole album about how there's this language barrier between me and the rest of the world, it's opened me up to have a translator instead.
Right. I mean, on that note, I mean, are all your songs written from a kind of personal perspective?
Mm, yes. I mean, there are certain songs that they lead more heavily into metaphors,
Yeah.
where, I tell more of a story than usual, but there's always a kernel of truth. There's always a starting point of which I experienced a thing. and it caused me to want to write a song. And then I just built upon the idea until it got to a place where I was happy with the song. Um, and I always say this, but it does kind of it does kind of give me away. It does kind of, make it hard for me to pretend that a song isn't about something. Because I do say this publicly a lot in interviews that all of my songs are somewhat from truth.
Right.
Um, but also at the end of the day, I do embellish because, it's the sake of a story. Sometimes the metaphors are the leading point of why the song
Yeah.
is so interesting. So when you do listen to the album eventually, don't worry, I've never actually burned down a circus.
I don't know how to follow that. But now,
That's
just going back then. Uh, do you find writing your lyrics cathartic?
I do. I do. I mean, I don't when I'm struggling to write them. Um,
Yeah.
I do when it's one of those songs where you sit down and you just get it all out at once, or you get a big chunk of it out and you're like, okay, I have a really good solid idea. Let me just keep working on this. It's less fun when you're just trying so hard to write lyrics and just nothing is happening. You know you have to get something out of you. And that one's less cathartic feeling, but in general, yeah, I mean that's why I write about my emotions because
Yeah.
it's cathartic for me, and I hope that the way that I create the music will be cathartic for others too.
Yeah. Okay. Just in terms of writing, you've worked with a lot of producers based in LA, New York, London, Barcelona. Who've worked with some huge artists like Ed Sheeran and people like that. What have you learned from them as a musician and an artist and a person?
Well, I, I think I have first of all, yes, I have worked with several different producers, but I actually landed on one, Jason Boshoff, who I I he is my favorite in the world. Like I never want to work with anyone other than him, or if I am working with other producers, I want him to be on the team. I want him to be involved. And I think that that's the most important thing about finding your team if you're going to be a musician.
Yeah.
Or if you're just appreciating musicians, it's important to know it's not about like who they've worked with or what prestigious things they've done. It's important, like, are they reliable? Are they creative? Are they creative in ways that make you a better
Yeah.
creative? Are they kind? Are they someone that you can depend on to make the best version of what you're trying to make together? Like I'm very proud of Jason and everything that he's done. I don't care whether he's worked with, Ed Sheeran or Ariana Grande or whether I am one of his only clients. I truly don't care.
Yeah.
I care about the fact that I know that if I am having a hard time recording a song one day, he will say, okay, let's take a break. Let's talk about everything. Let's discuss what's going on with you personally. I know that if I go to Barcelona and I'm recording stuff in the studio every day, he or one of the other people in that studio is going to open the door for me and have a cup of coffee made just the way I like it because they know me. And like that's what makes music so fun and so
Yeah.
beautiful is the team around you that you can actually connect with. Um, so that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Especially the coffee bit, it always makes a day. It always makes everything better. On that
Right.
note, then, from all your experiences with all these different producers and Jason and all these different people, you must have some fun stories that you remember and experiences. Anything
I definitely
that doesn't
definitely do.
involve burning down a circus.
Yes, I do. There's so many that I don't even know where to start. I guess one of my favorite stories would have to be from when I was in Barcelona, and we had been working for, gosh, like a week at that point. 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks at this point. We were trying to set up for a show. This is the first time that we'd ever done the whole album as a live show. We were really trying, and I uh come into the studio and everything had broken. Like all the buttons that were supposed to run the show had completely broken the day before. And Jason was very upset about it. I come into the studio the next day and I look over to where he's usually standing, and he is not standing. I look down and I see him sitting under a table with his little cup of coffee. And I go, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yes, everything is great. I fixed the show and I've earned under the table time." And so we just sat and had our morning coffee under the table.
Oh, sounds
it's
Yeah.
there's so many tiny stories like that, and there's so many big stories too, but I would talk for an hour if I went through all of them. So
No, definitely. I mean, yeah. There's, I mean, there must be many from your experiences. I mean, in terms of the shows, then, what can we expect from the live show? I mean, you've been choreographing it quite intensely recently, haven't you?
yeah, I mean, the live show, the one that I've been working on for the last few months, the one that my team has also been working on, that one is mostly just for the upcoming showcase on March 6th.
Yeah.
Um, that's when my album is being released, and so we're having a release day sort of party. It's an RSVP event. It's very cool. We've sold out 3 times now, so we keep having to increase the cap. Um,
Wow.
but that one is just going to be a run through of the entire album from start
Yeah.
to finish. But um, after that, when I do other shows, it's a little bit more of a mixture of my other songs in there as well. It's
Yeah.
most of the language barrier songs and then a couple others that I'm pretty proud of from times before. Um, but it's a very fun time. We have a lot of fun. There's a little bit of banter that for some reason we always seem to either not talk at all, but we just have like this very clear dynamic going on, or
Mm.
we're just talking so much that one of us has to catch the other and be like, okay, listen, we got to actually play the songs. This is not a stand-up bit. Um, but honestly, it's gotten a lot more rehearsed in the last few months. So I'm very confident about the show that we're going to put on, and I'm very excited for other people to see it.
Okay. But I mean, on that note, then, obviously, like you said, the album's coming out on the day of the London show. We've talked about your kind of personal lyrics. Um, And going back to the beginning, how you write music you want people to relate to. What do you hope they take away from listening to Language Barrier?
I hope that it has the same effect for anyone who listens to it that it's had on me playing it for others. That feeling of, okay, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe someone else does understand. Maybe it's going to be okay because this person is singing about all of these things that I can relate to in some way. So that means that I'm not alone. Uh, I hope it helps people take down that language barrier. I hope it can be a translator for people. Like I said earlier,
Mhm.
I want I want to help people to feel more together than apart, you know?
Right. Okay, brilliant. I mean, just to wrap up then, just before we wrap up, we do a less serious question just to wrap up interviews usually. Um,
Hmm.
we started putting them into AI and seeing what that comes up with, and that went down a real rabbit hole of
Oh boy.
yeah, it got to some really strange but this one was quite all right. So
Okay.
if you woke up one morning and your voice had been replaced by that of a cartoon character, whose voice would you want, and who do you think would kind of most match your personality?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I, oh, I'm trying to think. I think probably, am I allowed to pick the Scott Pilgrim anime
Yeah,
as a
yeah, yeah.
cartoon?
What have you?
Like I should. I feel like it would be Ramona Flowers from the Scott Pilgrim anime.
Okay, brilliant. Why is that? Why is that?
Uh, well, she's super cool. She has fancy colored hair like I do. She likes to roller skate everywhere. And she's just this no nonsense kind of person who's just she's always 3 steps ahead. And I would love to be like her. So I
Perfect.
feel like that's a pretty solid one. What about
Brilliant.
you?
Perfect.
Who
Brilliant.
would
Right,
you
just to
be?
wrap up then, first of all, thanks for your time. And good luck with the show on March the 6th and the album. And hopefully we'll catch up when you visit the UK
Yeah.
for a tour. Um, just to wrap up then, firstly, what are your goals for the future and what are your ambitions now once the album's out?
My goal is to keep making better music and keep pushing it out to more and more people and make an impact on the world.
Okay,
I
brilliant.
want to be someone that can help others, and the more people that I can help, the better it is.